It's 104.5, the hottest show in the world. Your boy Dee Dowdy, the count up. And listen, this right here is really nostalgic. This is nostalgic. And if you're listening to the interview or if you're watching the video, I got to do this introduction right, because this is probably going to be the most decorated introduction that I'm going to do in a long, long time. So let me go ahead and do it right. I'm honored right now to have on the line with me a 1997 McDonald's All-American. That's one fact. An NBA champion in 2010. That's two facts. And NBA All-Star 2004. I could keep going on and on and on and on. But I'm honored to have the brother himself, Metta, on the line with me. What's up, man?
Man, hey, thanks for the introduction, man. I hope all is well. And yeah, everything's great.
Oh, man. Now, listen, man, those stats that I just gave, arguably one of the greatest basketball NBA players we've seen in my time, anyway, in my time. Just how does it feel? Because now you're doing music. You're doing music now. So how does it feel to transition and not living your best life? Because you're retired, right? You're retired from the NBA situation and doing music and doing the things that you love to do, man. How's it feeling right now?
It feels great to get involved in everything. Music is something that's been a part of my life for a long time. MC Sharon, Marley Marl, who produced records for KRS-One, EPMD, Rakim, all the way to Nas, to Mobb Deep, to Nation, to Nature, to Chinky, to Roxanne Shante. When you talk about that history of music, it's something that I'm really proud of. And then that led to other things, in terms of like not only music, but doing other things.
And I can kind of tell just by that rundown you just did, like you really a student of music. So I got to ask you, even when you was playing ball and going on the road, who was you listening to when you was getting ready for games, going in and out of cities, and even now, who's some of your influences, bro?
It varied. When I was young, I was listening to more old school. I kind of grew up listening to my mom's music, and my sister turned me on to R&B, to like SWV, Mary J. Blige. They became some of my favorite artists, and that kind of transferred to Escape and then Boys II Men and stuff. Then when I started going outside, it became Mobb Deep, it became Nas, it became Special Ed. And as you got older, you started to understand where you're from, and that became Cormega, Nas, Mobb Deep, Nature, and just things like that. And Infamous Mob. So from that perspective, it kind of changed. And then as I grew into other music, then Eminem became, I was a big fan of him for quite a long time. A couple of years, I was bumping his music a lot, and it just kept transitioning. When I got older in 2010, it turned to Alberta Hunter, who was an artist from I think she was born in 1880, kind of took off in the 1920s. I was really into her. Then I started to really dibble and dabble into other music. Just listening to other music. From Tibetan music to, all types of music, you know what I'm saying? And now I don't listen to as much music, but sometimes I might listen, or sometimes I might even make music. It just depends on how I'm feeling.
Wow. Now this single that you have that we're pushing is super duper. It's a re-release of a classic that you did called Champions, man. What made you want to go back and just re-release this thing?
Well, I never put radio behind that record. When I did that record, it was really for basketball. I wanted to win a title, and I did it a year before we won the title. Just because I wanted to compete, we actually won the title. We just put the record out with no radio promo, no music video, and it did fairly decent. And then I was talking to my guy. He was like, "Hey, let's try to release it to radio." I said, "All right, cool." 12 years later, I was like, "All right, cool, let's do it." And we released it 12 years later. But it was a good record for me.
Now, I got to ask the question, because you said that you recorded that record before y'all actually won the chip, but y'all won the chip right after you done the record. So would you say that you was kind of manifesting that chip at that moment, man?
I mean, I definitely manifested it. But I'm not going to say that I knew it would happen. I mean, I knew it was going to happen, but it could have very well went the other way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It could have very well been a loss for us. But when I made that record, it was like, okay, I won a championship, and I want multiple championships. But now I'm older, so that dream is kind of done as a player. You know what I'm saying? But at that point in my life, I'm like, I'm too good, not to have a championship. That's how I personally felt.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, do a song about being a champion. You're a champion. You're going to be a champion. And that's kind of where that came from.
Wow, man. Wow. I just recently read an article that you actually have your own basketball league that you founded, correct? Give me a little information on that, bro. Like how's that adjustment being from a player to an owner now? Like how's that adjustment, bro?
It's great, man. You know, it's not a lot of like African American owners in media or sports teams or sports companies, big time sports enterprise companies. And there's not a lot of Black people that run it. I ain't talking about investing.
Yeah.
I'm talking about running it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Everything, right? And building a company. And that's Experts Exports is kind of that for me. And I'm highly involved and I want to see how big we can take it. Most of these sports media companies are selling for billions of dollars, right? Yeah. And it's like, how can we create something that is going to sell for that much? You know, and not saying my company is, but what I'm saying is, you know, I think it's very important that we create, you know, these big media, sports media companies, you know, that have real impact and real movement, where you ran it, where you started it, where you built it, you know, not where you invested in it and different things. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you don't see that much.
Wow. So now you're doing music and a owner running a team. I gotta ask this question because we just recently come out of a pandemic. Some people are still battling. What were you doing during that time of the social distance time and just the pandemic? What was Metta doing in those times, bro?
The pandemic, I mean, I just launched a basketball company during the pandemic, so it was tough because nobody was really out. And then also a lot of things was happening. I'm prepping for the future, and then the pandemic put a damper in everything, right? And we got to put ourselves in a situation where that don't happen. A lot of African Americans was affected by the pandemic, but a lot of companies tripled in profit, quadrupled in profit, right, during the pandemic. And people also, they often use that as a case study. You often hear people say, well, we tripled our company during COVID, but we also know people that lost their jobs during COVID, right? We also know people. So from that perspective, we got to make sure that that never happens again, right? We got to make sure that no matter what happens, if the stock market drops, no matter what, that we are going to continue to thrive, right? We should not be subject to the, to the failure or to the decline, of an economy, right? We've been at the front of decline lots of times as African Americans, right? And since other people are thriving during these downtimes, we need to start thriving also. So the pandemic was something that I wasn't really happy about because so many of us didn't thrive, right? Not saying that we should brag about thriving when so many people lost their lives, right? You often hear people saying during COVID, we did this much revenue and all this stuff. But how about a lot of people actually died? Right. So, the pandemic, I feel many different ways about the pandemic, from, spiritually, emotionally, from economically, and I just want, I think we just need to get ready for times like that because there's always going to be something coming up that, we are not always ready for because for one, we're not from this country, right? Where we came here from Africa. So a lot of the different values and the different teachings is not our own. So it takes us a little bit longer to catch on unless we get mentorship, scholarships, and all this stuff, little handouts and gimmies versus it being ours. So from that perspective, we got to be ready, right, to thrive during anything, right? We got to be ready to support each other. We got to be ready, to also understand that the cards were stacked against us from day one, and they're continuing to be stacked against us, right? So from that perspective, the pandemic, it gives me a lot of different thoughts, but that's one of them. We go outside. Yeah, let's go.
Champions, man. Champions is out right now. It's going super duper crazy, and it's crazy that you just told me the story, the background behind Champions about being on the team. The Lakers when the year before they won the championship, and I gotta ask you this our final question is simply that team had arguably one of the greatest players. It'll be for history. That team was a really phenomenal team. How did you adjust to the news when news came about the tragic passing of a former teammate that was on that team with you guys in Kobe Bryant, bro?
It's still hard to believe because when I think of Kobe, I think of someone who can get through anything. If anything was happening bad in my life, and I was around Kobe, I just know that I'm going to get through it. So it's really difficult. It's really hard to even fathom that Kobe's not here. Mm-hmm. Some days I don't believe it, honestly. Some days I'll see a picture of him, and it feels like he's here on this earth, in the soul and the flesh. And sometimes, sometimes I believe he's not.
Yeah.
Right. I'm still kind of in a state where I don't want to believe it.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I kind of cope with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But when I got the news, it was tough for everyone, not just me. It was really hard to believe. I went to the memorial, and I was just so upset. Now, I wasn't upset at anybody. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't upset at anybody. I was just so upset. I was so mad. I just couldn't believe it. You know what I'm saying? And so from that perspective, he'll always be here. We're trying to keep his name alive, trying to keep his work ethic alive, and everything he was about. We're just trying to keep it alive.
For sure, for sure. Listen, man, thank you for taking time. If people that's watching this video, bro is on the golf course right now. He look like he getting his golf on. He getting his golf.
I was playing a little golf.
He getting his golf on. He took a little time to kick it with me. This is what I want you to do, man, before we get up out of this thing, man. Introduce your record, because I want to drop this thing live on the radio. So introduce your record, Champions, like only Metta can, man. Let's do it like that.
Hey, yo, what's good? It's Metta World Peace, formerly known as Ron Artest from 10th Street, Queensbridge Projects. You already know what it is. Right now, we introducing Champions.
Champions, we are champions. Ain't nobody handle us. No, there ain't no competitors. No wonder why we are the champions. You read the newspapers, you saw the magazines, you got the internet, but you ain't gotta Google me. My name is up in lights, my face is well known. You see a Super Bowl dancing in the end zone. You see us taking shots of vodka out Stanley's Cup. You